My brother, Frank, used my credit card to pay for his entire $40,000 wedding reception, laughing that I was rich and alone. It was the last of my business's operating funds. When my mother told me to be quiet, I made one phone call. The next morning, as the for sale sign went up on her lawn, they learned their gift would cost them everything. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The sterile, incessant beep of the hospital heart monitor was the soundtrack to my life. I was propped up against a mountain of starchy pillows, a lukewarm cup of tea untouched on the rolling table beside me. It wasn't anything life-threatening, just a severe case of pneumonia exacerbated by 2 months of nonstop work. I'd been running my graphic design agency, Pixel Perfect, on fumes and caffeine, trying to land a major client that would finally pull us out of the red. The doctor had mandated a 72-hour observation, and honestly, being forced to rest was almost a relief. That's when my phone, sitting innocuously on my lap, buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was a credit card alert. Fraud alert. A charge of $40,000 to the Grand Oak Pavilion has been approved. If you did not make this charge, please contact us immediately. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat, which triggered a dry, painful cough. $40,000. The Grand Oak Pavilion. It took my oxygen-starved brain a moment to place the name. It was the laughably expensive venue my brother, Frank, and his fiancée, Megan, had been mooning over for their wedding. My fingers, clumsy and shaking, immediately dialed Frank's number. He picked up on the third ring, not with a hello, but with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. "Frank," I said, my voice a hoarse croak. "Frank, what did you do?" "Alice, hey." His voice was slick with false cheer. "Shouldn't you be resting? Mom said you were in the hospital." "My card, Frank, the Grand Oak. It's a $40,000 charge. Tell me it's a mistake." There was a pause, the background noise muffled as he must have put a hand over the phone. I heard him whisper something to Megan, followed by her distinct, high-pitched giggle. He came back on the line, his voice dripping with an arrogance that chilled me to the bone. "Oh, that. Relax, Alice. We just, took care of the final bill. The deposit was already paid, so we just settled the rest." "What do you mean, we? You used my card. The card I gave you for the caterer's deposit." I had explicitly given him the card number for a $1,000 deposit 2 months ago, a gift I already couldn't afford. The vendor must have kept it on file. "Yeah, well, consider it your wedding gift," he laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound, utterly devoid of humor. "I mean, come on, you're rich. You've got that whole company. And let's be honest, you're all alone. What else are you going to spend your money on? You should be happy for me." Rich and alone. The words slammed into me, knocking the air from my already struggling lungs. Rich. I was a week away from missing payroll. That $40,000 wasn't rich. It was my operating capital. It was my employees' salaries. It was the rent for my office. It was the money I had painstakingly saved to cover the quiet period after my expansion, the money that was supposed to keep my business, my entire life's work, afloat. "Frank," I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a cold, hollow dread. That was my last money. That was everything." "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Alice," he scoffed. "You'll make more. Anyway, I gotta go. Megan wants to practice our first dance. See you at the wedding. Don't be late." The line clicked dead. I sat motionless, the phone slipping from my fingers onto the thin hospital blanket. The beep of the heart monitor seemed to grow louder, mocking me. Rich and alone, he hadn't just stolen from me. He had taken my sacrifices, the years I'd spent supporting him and our mother, the relationships I'd let wither because I was always too busy, the children I'd never had, and twisted them into a justification for theft. I thought of my business partner, Helen. I thought of my 3 employees who trusted me. I thought of the lease I'd just signed. In one glib, selfish act, my brother had destroyed it all. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press the nurse's call button. A kindly woman with tired eyes came in, took one look at my face and the frantic rhythm on the heart monitor, and immediately adjusted my oxygen. "Deep breaths, dear. You're working yourself up," she said, her voice gentle. "My phone," I gasped. I need to make a call." I didn't call the bank to report the fraud. Not yet. Reporting it as fraud would mean filing a police report. It would mean my brother, Frank, would be arrested. As much as I despised him in that moment, the thought of sending my own brother to jail, the scandal it would cause, I hesitated. There had to be another way. I called the only other person implicated in this, our mother, Linda. She lived in a comfortable 2-bedroom bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. She was supposed to be the family's moral center, the one who, despite her flaws, believed in doing the right thing. She picked up immediately. "Alice, is everything okay? I was just about to come visit." Tears of pure, unadulterated panic streamed down my face. "Mom, Frank did something." He did something terrible. He charged his entire wedding reception to my card. $40,000. He stole it. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I heard her sigh, a sound I knew well. It was the sigh of inconvenience. "Oh, Alice," she said, her voice laced with exhaustion. "Are you sure? Maybe it was a mistake." "He admitted it, Mom. He told me it was my gift because I'm rich and alone." "Mom, that was the company's money. That was payroll. I'm ruined. He's ruined me." Another sigh, this one deeper. "Well, what's done is done, isn't it? The wedding is in 2 days. You can't possibly." "What do you mean, what's done is done?" I was almost shouting, my voice cracking. "He stole from me. He needs to call the venue. He needs to cancel the payment. He needs to fix this now." "Don't be dramatic, Alice," she said, and my blood ran cold. She had used the exact same words as Frank. It was like they had rehearsed. "You know how much this day means to him and Megan. You can't make trouble right now. It would destroy him." "Make trouble," I repeated, incredulous. "He committed a felony. I'm the one who is destroyed." "Alice, listen to me," she said, her voice dropping into that familiar, wheedling tone of passive-aggressive martyrdom. "He's your brother, and I'm your mother. You've always been the strong one. You've always taken care of us. You'll figure something out. You always do. Just let him have this. Don't make trouble for me." The audacity of it, the sheer, breathtaking selfishness, left me speechless. I had been taking care of them since I was 20. I'd paid for Frank's college tuition, which he'd wasted. I'd covered my mother's living expenses. I'd bylaid Frank out of credit card debt twice. All of it so they could live comfortably while I worked myself into pneumonia. And now, when they had finally pushed me off the financial cliff, her only concern was not making trouble. A strange calm settled over me. The shaking stopped. The tears dried. It was the kind of cold, clarifying rage that burns away all panic and leaves only a sharp, hard point of purpose. "You're right, Mom," I said, my voice suddenly level. "I'm the strong one. I'm the one who takes care of things." "Good," she said, sounding relieved. "I knew you'd understand. Now I'll see you at the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. Wear that nice blue dress I like." "No," I said. "No? What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no, I won't be there." A thought, a seed of a plan, was already forming in my mind. They thought I was rich and alone. They saw my assets as their personal safety net. They had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten that a safety net can be moved. "Mom," I said, my voice flat and devoid of all emotion, "you told me not to make trouble, but you're wrong. I am going to make trouble. And the truly sad part is, after I do this, only you will have problems." I hung up the phone before she could reply. I ignored the doctor's orders. I ripped the IV from my arm, my heart monitor screaming in protest as I tore the sensors from my chest. I signed the AMA, against medical advice forms, ignoring the nurse's frantic protests, and walked out of the hospital, my thin robe flapping. I had work to do. My history with Frank and my mother was a long, tangled ledger of one-sided transactions. Frank was the golden child, the boy who could do no wrong, even when he was doing nothing but wrong. I was the responsible one, the capable daughter. Our roles had been set in stone since our father left when I was 16 and Frank was 10. I got a job. Frank got coddled. I put myself through community college, then state university, by working 3 jobs. All the while, I was sending money home to help out, which I later learned meant funding Frank's high school social life. When I started Pixel Perfect, my small, 2-person design studio, I did it with a high-interest loan and 100-hour work weeks. The moment I had my first profitable year, the calls started. Frank needed a new car for his sales job. My mother, Linda, needed help with property taxes. I paid. I kept paying. I convinced myself it was what a good daughter, a good sister, did. Then, 5 years ago, my mother's landlord decided dead to sell the duplex she was renting. She called me, hysterical, claiming she would be out on the street. I was just starting to build a real savings. Instead of investing it in my company's growth, I drained my accounts and took out a second mortgage on my own condo to buy her that bungalow. A safe place, I told myself, so she would never have to worry again. I put the deed in my name, a decision my lawyer insisted on, citing my family's financial instability, but I never once lorded it over her. It was her home. I paid the taxes, I paid for the insurance, and when the roof leaked, I paid for that too. Frank, meanwhile, had floated from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. His current sales job was for a multi-level marketing company selling energy drinks. His real job, as far as I could tell, was spending money he didn't have. Then, a year ago, he met Megan. Megan was, in a word, polished. She was all sharp angles, expensive-looking blonde highlights, and a blindingly white smile. She ran a lifestyle Instagram account with 2,000 followers and spoke of brand synergy and curating a vibe. She had no discernible job, yet she wore designer knockoff handbags as if they were real and looked at my practical, comfortable work clothes with a kind of pitying disdain. From the moment she was introduced to the family, her focus on me was intense, but it wasn't friendly. It was assessing. She would ask pointed questions over dinner, disguised as idle chatter. "Alice, your company must be doing so well. That's just amazing." Frank says you own your mother's house. That is so generous. It must be hard running a business all by yourself. Don't you ever get lonely? I saw her for exactly what she was, a parasite looking for a new host. And she had identified Frank as the delivery system to my resources. When they announced their engagement, the wedding planning began immediately. Megan's vision was a $100,000 affair. Frank, desperate to keep her, promised her the world. When their loan applications were, predictably, denied, the pressure on me started. It began with hints. We're just so stressed, Alice. We just want our one perfect day. It escalated to demands. If you could just co-sign this one loan. It ended in a full-blown argument 2 months ago. You owe this to me, Alice. Frank had shouted over the phone. You have everything and I have nothing. I had refused. I told him I didn't have the money. I told him my business was in a critical growth phase and every penny was accounted for. He had called me a selfish, bitter old maid. That was the last time we'd spoken, until I gave him my card number for the $1,000 caterer deposit, a peace offering I'd made against my better judgment. A peace offering he and Megan had apparently seen as a key. Now, sitting in my dark, cold office at 3 a.m, having just fled the hospital, the full picture was clear. This wasn't an impulse. This was a calculated plot. They had waited. They'd waited until I was vulnerable, until I was in the hospital. They knew the wedding was 2 days away. They knew I wouldn't want to make trouble. They had counted on my guilt, my sense of family duty, and my exhaustion. They saw me as a bank, an ATM, rich and alone. I opened my laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating my pale, drawn face. I pulled up the folder labeled Family. In it was the deed to my mother's house, the utility bills I paid, the receipts for Frank's loans. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just the strong one. I was the smart one. I was the one who built a business from nothing. And they had just given me a reason to finally treat this as a hostile takeover. The first light of dawn was gray and watery, filtering through the blinds of my office. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the last 4 hours fueled by a toxic mix of rage and prednisone, meticulously combing through my financials. The $40,000 charge had hit my primary business account. It was, as I'd feared, catastrophic. After payroll on the 15th, I would be negative. I couldn't pay my quarterly taxes. I couldn't pay my office lease. Pixel Perfect would be insolvent by the end of the month. My first call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to my business partner, Helen. She was my CFO, my lead accountant, and the sanest person I knew. She picked up on the first ring. Alice, what's wrong? I thought you were in the hospital. I was, I said, my voice flat. Helen, I need you to come to the office, now, and bring the contingency binder. An hour later, she was sitting across from me, a styrofoam cup of coffee in her hand, her face grim as I laid out the situation. 40,000, she breathed, her eyes wide. Alice, that's payroll. That's everything, I confirmed. Frank stole it for his wedding. Helen, ever the pragmatist, just nodded slowly. Okay, so we have 2 problems, the immediate cash flow crisis and the family prob. Lem, she tapped her pen on the table. The first one is easier. We can move money from the tax escrow, but that's a temporary fix. We'll need to replace it, or we're in deep trouble with the IRS. We need that $40,000 back. Now. I'm not filing a police report, I said firmly. I didn't think you would, she said. It's messy, but Alice, you can't just let them keep it. I don't intend to. I opened the family folder on my laptop and turned the screen toward her. I have an asset. Helen leaned in. She scrolled through the files. The deed to the bungalow, the last 5 years of property tax payments, the insurance policies, all in my name. All paid by my company as an owner's draw expense. A slow, calculating smile spread across her face. Oh, Alice, that's not just an asset, that's a nuclear option. My mother and brother see me as their safety net, I said, the cold resolve hardening in my voice. It's time to show them what happens when the net is removed. What's the plan? Frank's rehearsal dinner is tonight. The wedding is tomorrow morning. They think I'm just going to roll over and accept this to avoid a scene. They're counting on it. I pulled up a different file, this one a contact. I'm calling my lawyer, Michael. I need him to draft an eviction notice and a demand letter. And I'm calling a realtor, the most aggressive one I know. My second call was to Michael. I explained the situation, the fraud, the amount. It's a clear-cut case of unauthorized use, he said. We can freeze his accounts, file a... No, I interrupted. Not yet. I want to handle this my way first. I own my mother's property outright. She is, legally, a tenant at will. I want you to draw up a formal 30-day notice to vacate. And I want a separate demand letter addressed to Frank, Megan, and my mother, holding them jointly responsible for the $40,000 to be repaid in full, or I proceed with criminal charges for wire fraud. Alice, this is aggressive, Michael said, but there was a note of approval in his voice. They charged my company card, Michael. They didn't just steal from me, they threatened the livelihoods of my employees. I want this done by noon. My third call was to a top-producing realtor in my mother's neighborhood. I need to list a property, I said, and I need the for sale sign in the yard by sunrise tomorrow, the day of the wedding. By 10:00 a.m., I was a woman on a mission. Helen and I had restructured the accounts to cover the immediate payroll bleed. By noon, Michael had emailed me the scanned copies of the notice to vacate and the demand letter. I spent the afternoon not in a hospital bed, but in my office preparing. I printed the documents on thick, heavy stock paper. I put them in a crisp, professional-looking envelope. I called the Grand Oak Pavilion not to cancel, but to confirm a few details. I spoke to the event's manager, a very helpful woman named Cynthia. Yes, I confirmed. The payment from Alice, owner of Pixel Perfect. I'm just calling to confirm that as the payee, I am also entitled to all vendor contracts and planning documents associated with the event. Yes, I'll hold. A minute later, my inbox pinged. The contracts, the timelines, the guest list, and most interestingly, the private email exchanges between Megan, Frank, and the venue. I started reading. My eyes widened. It was worse than I thought. We just need to get the final payment from my sister, Megan had written 3 weeks ago. She's a bit difficult, but she'll pay. She always does. They hadn't just stolen the money. They had been planning to make me pay all along. The theft was just their final, desperate move when I refused to fund their fantasy. I looked at the clock. 6:00 p.m. The rehearsal dinner was starting in an hour. I went home, took a hot shower, and put on my best black suit. Not the blue dress my mother liked. This was armor. I was no longer a victim. I was a creditor, and I was about to make my first collection call in person. The rehearsal dinner was at a ridiculously trendy restaurant with concrete floors and exposed ductwork. I walked in at 7:00 p.m., just as the appetizers were being served. The entire wedding party was gathered at a long table, Frank and Megan at the head, holding court. My mother, Linda, was seated near them, beaming. When she saw me walk in, her smile faltered, replaced by a look of strained anxiety. She clearly hadn't expected me to show. Frank saw me next. His eyes widened in momentary panic, but it was quickly replaced by a smug, challenging grin. He nudged Megan, who turned, saw me, and her face tightened, her perfectly applied lipstick twisting into a sneer. I ignored them all and walked directly to the bar. I ordered a club soda. I needed my head clear. After a few minutes, my mother scurried over, wringing her hands. "Alice, you came. I'm so glad you decided to be reasonable." "I'm not here to be reasonable, Mom," I said, not look. Ing at her, I sipped my soda. "I'm here on business." "Business? Alice, don't, please. It's Frank's special night. Look how happy he is." I finally turned to look at her. He was happy in the hospital, too, while he was robbing me. Did you know he and Megan had been planning to make me pay for this all along? That they called me difficult to the wedding planner because I wouldn't fund their fantasy. My mother's face went pale. They were just stressed, Alice. You know how weddings are. "Stop," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Stop making excuses for him. You have enabled him his entire life, and this is the result. You've created a thief." "How dare you?" she hissed, her eyes filling with tears of self-pity. "I am your mother, after all I've done for you," I cut her off. "And that's the part you all seem to forget." I left her sputtering at the bar and walked toward the table. The chatter died down as I approached. Frank stood up, attempting an air of magnanimous charm. "Alice, glad you could make it," he said loudly for the benefit of Megan's friends. "No hard feelings about gift, right? We're all family." He went to hug me. I put up a hand, stopping him cold. From my briefcase, I pulled out the crisp, white envelope. I didn't hand it to him. I slid it across the table. It landed perfectly between his plate and Megan's. "What's this?" Megan asked, her voice sharp. "If it's a bill, Alice, that's incredibly tacky." "It's a copy of a demand letter from my lawyer," I said, my voice clear and carrying in the sudden silence. "It details the $40,000 you charged to my business credit card without authorization. You have 30 days to return the full amount, or I proceed with criminal charges for wire fraud." Frank's face went from smug to purple. You wouldn't," he stammered. $40,000, I continued, "is not a gift. It's grand larceny. It's also, as of this morning, my entire company's payroll, which you've just stolen." A few of Megan's bridesmaids gasped. Megan, however, doubled down. "You are lying," she hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You're just trying to ruin our wedding because you're a jealous, miserable old hag. You're rich. Frank said you were." "Rich?" I almost laughed. "I'm not rich, I'm leveraged. I have a business to run, employees to pay, and taxes due. That money you spent on your perfect day was their salary. But you're right about one thing. I'm not here to ruin your wedding. I'm here to save my company." I then turned to my mother, who was watching with wide, terrified eyes. I pulled a second envelope from my briefcase. This one I handed directly to her. What is this?" she whispered, her hands trembling. "That," I said, "is a legal notice to vacate the property at 452 Oakwood Drive. The house is being put on the market tomorrow morning to cover the debt you and your son have incurred. You have 30 days to find a new living arrangement." My mother looked at the paper, then at me, her face a mask of pure, uncomprehending horror. My house? Alice, you can't. It's my house. It's my house, Mom, I said, my voice echoing with years of suppressed frustration. It's my asset, and you, Frank, and Megan just liquidated it. You told me not to make trouble. You said I'd figure something out. Well, I did. I'm selling the house to pay the $40,000 you stole. Linda let out a small, strangled cry and sank into a chair. Frank exploded. You monster, you'd kick our own mother out on the street? For what? Money. For my money, I shot back, my own volume rising. The money you stole. You thought I was a bank, Frank. You thought I was an endless supply. You thought I was rich and alone. You were half right. I am alone, because my family are thieves. But I'm not rich. I'm just the only one of us who knows how to work. Megan suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly. You can't do this. The wedding, the vendors are paid. We're having our day. Oh, the wedding is happening, I said with a chilling smile. I've made sure of it. After all, I paid for it. And as the sole payee, the venue was happy to transfer the entire event package, including all vendor contracts, into my name. I am now legally the host, and you, my dear, are just my guests. I'll see you both tomorrow. Try to be on time. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving a bomb crater of silence and shock behind me. The next morning, I was up before dawn. I didn't go to the salon to get my hair and makeup done. I went to my mother's house. I arrived at 7:00 a.m., just as the realtor's team was hammering the FOR sale sign into the front lawn. It was a beautiful, large print sign. Immediate occupancy, it declared in a bold red banner across the top. My mother's front door flew open. She was still in her nightgown, her hair a mess. She stared at the sign, then at me, as I stood on the sidewalk, holding it. Coffee. Alice, Alice, take it down, she shrieked, running onto the lawn. My neighbors will see. What will people think? They'll think the house is for sale, Mom, which it is, I said calmly. You're a monster. You're doing this to ruin Frank's wedding day. After everything I did for you. Stop, I said, holding up a hand. Just stop. You have 30 days, Linda. I suggest you spend less time worrying about your neighbors and more time calling apartment rental agencies. Her face crumpled. Frank can't pay you back. He doesn't have any money. This wedding, it's all he has. This wedding, I said, is a $40,000 lie, and he doesn't have to pay me back. You're going too. The sale of this house will cover the debt, and I'll be able to pay my employees. But what about me? She wailed. Where will I go? Frank and Megan can't take me in. Their apartment is tiny. That sounds like a you problem, I said, the words tasting like ash but necessary. You told me to let him have this. You told me not to make trouble. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I got back in my car and drove away, leaving her weeping on the front lawn next to the FOR sale sign. My phone started ringing almost immediately. It was Frank. I let it go to voicemail. Then Megan. I let that go too. Then a flurry of texts. Frank, take the sign down now. You've made your point. Megan, you will not ruin my day, you bitter old witch. You will regret this. Frank, Mom is hysterical. This is all your fault. I'm going to sue YOU. I laughed. Sue me? With what lawyer? With what money? They still didn't get it. They thought this was a negotiation. They thought this was a tantrum, a bluff. They still believed I would cave for the sake of family. They had no idea what else I'd been doing. While they were having their meltdown, I was on the phone with Helen and my lawyer, Michael. They're panicking, I told Michael. Frank is threatening to sue. Let him, Michael said, sounding amused. But Alice, I have some new information. You asked me to look into the fiancé, Megan. And she's not just an aspiring influencer. She's a professional. She's been engaged twice before in the last 5 years, both times to men from families with money. Both engagements were broken off, and both times she walked away with gifts, a car, a significant cash settlement to avoid embarrassment. My blood ran cold. She's a con artist. She's very good at it, Michael said. She finds gullible men with access to family money, manufactures a high-stakes crisis, like a dream wedding, and leverages the family's desire to avoid scandal into a payday. It seems this time she just miscalculated. She thought you were the gullible one. And Frank, I said, the pieces clicking into place. He's not just her fiancé, he's her partner. It appears that way. The $40,000 charge wasn't just for the wedding. The venue confirmed they received payment, but they also issued a refund of $15,000 to a different account. An account in Megan's name only. They'd overpaid with your card and pocketed the difference. They hadn't just stolen. They had skimmed. They were planning to pay for the wedding and simultaneously steal a cash gift for themselves. My $40,000 was meant to be $25,000 for the venue and $15,000 for their honeymoon fund. This changed everything. This wasn't just desperate, selfish theft. This was calculated, predatory fraud. Frank was still struggling. He was still my blood. But Megan, she was a professional, and she had just made the fatal mistake of leaving a paper trail that led directly to my lawyer. Michael, I said, I need you to print out every document you found. The bank transfer for the $15,000, the records from her past engagements, everything. What are you going to do? He asked. I paid for a wedding, I said. I'm going to attend, and I'm going to bring a gift. The wedding was at 11:00 a.m. I arrived at 10:45, not in a bridesmaid dress, but in my black power suit. I looked like I was attending a corporate execution, which, in a way, I was. I walked into the Grand Oak Pavilion. It was beautiful. Megan had good taste, I'd give her that. Flowers dripped from every surface. A string quartet was playing softly. Frank was at the front, looking pale and sweaty in his tuxedo. When he saw me, he started to walk toward me, his face a mask of fury. What are you doing here? He hissed, trying to keep his voice down. I'm the host, remember? I said brightly. I paid. I'm here to make sure my guests are happy. You, he stammered, you ruined everything. Mom is a wreck. You've destroyed this family. No, Frank, I said, my voice dropping. You did. You and Megan. Or should I say, Megan and her 2 prior fiancés, the ones she also took for thousands of dollars. Frank's face went from red to a sickly, mottled white. He looked like he was going to be sick. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the $15,000, I said, watching his eyes. There, the flicker of pure terror. The refund you and Megan had the venue send to her private account. The money you stole on top of the money you stole. You didn't just want a wedding, Frank. You wanted a payday. She's not just your fiancée. She's your business partner. He was speechless. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. Here comes the bride, I whispered, smiling. You'd better get back up there. The show is about to start. I took a seat in the back row, a thick manila envelope resting on my lap. The music swelled. The doors opened, and Megan appeared, a vision in white lace. She glided down the aisle, her eyes locked on Frank, but as she got closer, her smile faltered. She could see his face. She could see the panic. She looked past him and saw me, sitting in the back, smiling and holding that envelope. Her step faltered. The spell was broken. The ceremony was a masterclass in tension. Frank and Megan both looked like they were walking a tightrope. They rushed through their vows, their voices high and strained. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the kiss was a brief, awkward press of lips. The applause from the guests was polite, but the energy in the room was horribly wrong. The reception was held in the main ballroom. As the host, I had taken the liberty of making one small change to the seating chart. I'd placed myself at the main family table, directly across from my mother, who looked as if she hadn't slept in a week, and next to the happy couple. Frank and Megan sat down, rigid. "What is in that envelope, Alice?" Megan hissed, abandoning all pretense of bridal joy. "My wedding gift," I said, placing it on the table. "I want you to leave," she said. "You've done enough. You've humiliated Frank's mother." I believe Frank humiliated his mother by stealing from his sister and getting her kicked out of her home. I corrected. The first dance was excruciating. They moved stiffly, whispering furiously to each other. I saw Megan smack Frank's arm. I saw him shake his head, defeated. Then came the toasts. The best man, a friend of Frank's who clearly didn't know the real story, gave a bland, generic speech. Then Megan's maid of honor, who seemed to be in on the con, gushed about soulmates and true love. Then I stood up. I picked up my champagne flute. "I'd like to make a toast," I announced. The room quieted. All eyes turned to me. Frank tried to pull me back down. "Alice, don't. Sit down." "Put your hands on me, Frank," I said in a low, even voice, "and I'll have you removed for assault. My treat." He recoiled. I tapped my glass. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alice, Frank's sister, and the patron of this event. I'm the one who paid for this all." A polite smattering of applause. Megan's face was white. "Frank and I have had our differences," I continued, "but he's always been ambitious, and in Megan, he's truly found his equal. A woman who knows exactly what she wants and exactly how to get it." I smiled directly at Megan. Some brides, for instance, just want a beautiful day, but Megan is much smarter than that. Why settle for a day when you can get a payday? A confused murmur went through the crowd. "You see," I said, opening the manila envelope, "Megan is what you'd call a professional bride. This is, by my lawyer's count, her third high-stakes engagement in 5 years." I pulled out the first document. This is a copy of a police report from a Mr. James Abernathy in 2021. He alleges his fiancée, Megan Riley, though she was Megan Ross, then convinced him to buy her a $35,000 investment car, which she promptly disappeared with. Megan shot to her feet. "You're lying. Security, get her out of here." "Oh, but I'm the host," I said, holding up the venue contract. "I'm the only one who can call security. Please, sit down, Megan. The best part is coming." I pulled out the second document. "And this is a bank transfer. A $15,000 refund from this very venue sent to a private offshore account. It seems my brother and new sister-in-law accidentally overcharged my business card and had the difference. My other money funneled directly to them." The ballroom was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. I turned to Frank, my brother, who told me I should be happy to pay because I was rich and alone, who stole my employees' salaries while I was in a hospital bed. Also, he and his con artist bride could not only throw a party they couldn't afford, but also skim $15,000 off the top for their getaway. My mother, Linda, let out a choked sob. Frank, is this true? Frank just stared at the table, his entire body shaking. Megan, however, was not a crier. She was a fighter. She grabbed a glass of champagne and threw it at me. You ruined my life, she shrieked. I dodged it easily. The champagne splashed across the empty chair next. To me. No, Megan, I said, picking up the last document. You did. This is a copy of the criminal complaint for fraud that my lawyer is filing on Monday. For $55,000. The 40 you stole and the 15 you skimmed. Then I looked at Frank. His eyes were wide with a terror I'd never seen before. He wasn't a smug, entitled boy anymore. He was a cornered, pathetic man. Unless, I said, you'd like to make a different deal. Megan, seeing her escape route, suddenly rounded on Frank. You told me she was easy. You told me she'd pay and shut up. You idiot, you've ruined me. She slapped him hard across the face. The sound cracked through the ballroom. And that's when Frank, my weak, enabling, selfish brother, finally did the first useful thing in his entire life. As Megan turned to run, he grabbed her arm. No, he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. You're not leaving me with this. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Alice, please, I didn't know about the other guys. I swear I thought it was just the refund. You still stole it, Frank, I said. I know, he cried, tears streaming down his face. But she said it was the only way we could be together. She said you'd never miss it. I'll sign anything. I'll testify. Just don't send me to prison. Megan tried to rip her arm away, but Frank held on. The string quartet had mercifully stopped playing. I looked at the chaos, at the horrified guests, at my weeping mother, at my pathetic brother and his snarling, trapped bride. Fine, I said. I walked over to Michael, my lawyer, who had been standing discreetly by the door. He stepped forward and handed Frank a pen and a document. This is a full confession, Michael said, his voice booming in the quiet room, and a promissory note for the full $55,000, holding you solely responsible in exchange for your testimony against Ms. Megan. Frank, sobbing, grabbed the pen and signed it on the cake table. Megan let out a sound of pure, animalistic rage, but she was done. As two police officers, whom Michael had thoughtfully called to oversee a civil matter, stepped into the ballroom, she didn't fight. She just let her shoulders slump. The spell wasn't just broken, it was annihilated. The downfall was swift and total. Megan, facing overwhelming evidence and Frank's full testimony, was charged with fraud and larceny. Her defense collapsed when one of her previous fiancés, emboldened by my lawyer's call, agreed to testify as well. She was a serial predator, and the law finally treated her as such. She's currently serving a 3-year sentence. Frank, in exchange for his cooperation, received probation and a court-mandated 1,500 hours of community service. The promissory note he signed was ironclad. His wages from his sales, job, and any other job he holds for the next decade are garnished. A small check for $200 arrives at my office on the 1st of every month. It's not much, but it's a start. It's an acknowledgement. My business, Pixel Perfect, survived. Just barely. Helen, my rock, helped me secure a short-term, high-interest bridge loan to cover the immediate gap. It took us 6 months of grinding, 80-hour weeks to get back on solid ground, but we did it. The client I was pitching for before my pneumonia. We landed them. We're finally, truly profitable. The day the for sale sign went up on my mother's bungalow was the day our relationship, as I knew it, ended. I did, however, offer her a choice. I met her at a diner a week after the wedding that wasn't. She looked old and frail, and for a moment, the old guilt tugged at me. The house is in escrow, I told her. It sold in 3 days. After I pay back the loan I had to take and replenish the company's tax account, the $40,000 will be settled. So I'm homeless, she said, not looking at me. No, I said, you're not. I have 2 options for you. I slid 2 pamphlets across the table. Option A is a very nice, 1-bedroom apartment in a senior living community. It's clean, it's safe, and it's well within a budget I can afford to subsidize. I will pay the first 6 months' rent to get you settled. After that, you'll have to use your Social Security. I will no longer be paying your bills. And option B, she whispered. Option B is Frank. You can move in with him. He's currently living in a studio apartment above a garage. The choice is yours. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a resentment that burned hotter than any love she'd ever shown me. You're just like your father, she spat. Cold. No, Mom, I said, standing up and leaving a $20 bill on the table for her coffee. I'm the one who stayed, and I'm the one who is finally leaving. Let me know where to send the check for the deposit. She chose the apartment. We don't talk. I get a clipped, formal thank you card at Christmas. It's better this way. The chaos of that day reset my life. I sold my own oversized condo and moved into a smaller, brighter space. I took my first real vacation in 10 years. I reconnected with old friends. I'm no longer just rich and alone. I'm not even rich, but I'm solvent, I'm respected, and I am, for the first time in my life, truly free. The phone rang last week. It was Frank. His voice was different, quieter. Alice, he said, I just finished my community service. I got a real job at a hardware store. It's okay. That's good, Frank, I said, neutral. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for all of it. I was weak, and I was stupid, and I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. The anger, the white-hot rage that had carried me through that awful time, was gone. All I felt was a dull ache. I know you are, Frank, I said. Thank you for saying it. I didn't say, I forgive you. I don't know if I ever will, but it was a start. I hung up the phone, looked out my new office window at the city, and got back to work.